Erica, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Erica Hawthorne. I'm the Executive Director of Digital Media Strategy and Operation at Bayer Pharmaceuticals. Do you want to call out, because people always think I sell the Claritin and the OTC stuff. 3 business units: consumer health, pharma, crop sciences. My group is pharma. We're the second to in-house our digital media, first pharmaceutical company to do that in the industry.
Wow, cool. Going to be some really cool content and experience to share on that front. Stephen, would you like to let the audience know where you're from?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Stephen Clark. I'm from Golden Cross Caribbean Restaurant, Jamaican. I can't call it fast food because it's not really fast food, but we're a Caribbean restaurant chain with 110 restaurants, predominantly in the Eastern Seaboard. And we also are responsible for the retail side of business, where we have a microwavable product in about 20,000 supermarkets in the country.
Excellent. So a couple of really well-known brands with very different go-to-market strategies, some crossover in customers, obviously, but it'd be really interesting to find out a bit more, firstly, about how you got into what you're doing now. Erica, let's start with you. I'd love to know, what was your first ever job? Not marketing specific, but what was the first thing you got paid to do?
Burger King, $4.75 an hour, so how
Yep.
good am I? And I was super excited because the minimum wage was $4.50, and I negotiated that quarter.
Yep.
Game changer.
Lovely.
I was flipping burgers, running cash registers.
Yep.
First job.
Excellent. Stephen?
I've kind of always been in the baker business, restaurant business. My parents had 3 locations: Yonkers, Poughkeepsie, and East Tremont in the Bronx. But separately from that, I was into cell phones. I was doing programming for Nextel at like the little neighborhood community cell phone shop.
Yep.
That was when Nextels had the light up antennas. People in here remember Nextel, right? I would assume Nextel was big in this room. So that was really it, early high school days.
Excellent, excellent. So let's just switch gears. So you're obviously in really senior marketing roles now. What was, either the first job or just the first moment that you went, that's something I'm into? Erica, like what sort of headed you down that path? Because you've had a really broad history working agency side, brand side. You've done lots of really interesting things in programmatic and lots of really forward-thinking types of channels. But what was that first inkling for you?
Honestly, I went to J school, journalism school. I have a concentration in public relations. I thought I was going to do PR. And then the bottom fell out of the economy. And I was working for an Idea Lab company because I started in paid search when people were like, nobody's going to do this thing. Think about what you do now.
Yeah.
So I was a copywriter. And I was like, I have a journalism degree. I love to write. I still write, right? So at the precursor, you can't hear me? I keep saying I'm so loud, but that shocks me. But Overture Services, first job, copywriter, when Google was the upstart.
Love it. Love it. That's great. Yeah, I remember my first foray into search marketing was paying 6 cents per click in about 2003, running my own business. And people were telling me, trust me, it's going to get people to your events. And I was also running banner ads back then as well, where you pay CPM, and just had no idea if it was actually going to do anything. But people came to the events, so I think that digital thing might stick.
CTRs were like 7-8% back then. So for a banner, I know that's shocking, but I keep dating myself here. They worked.
Yeah. And Stephen, so when was it? So were you within the family business when you realised that marketing was a direction for you, or was it before that?
Innately, it was always the way I thought.
Yep.
Like in 3rd grade, I was selling paper planes. Like, if I could do it, I'm going to make some money off of it.
Cool.
And if I do it well, I'm going to try to make more.
Yep.
So that's just always how my mind frame operates. But for me, it was about 2008 when the business, it was a consultation role, doing concept development.
Yep.
Because at that point, the function was very small and they needed somebody with some outside the box thinking. I was always involved in college. I was, the president for my fraternities chapter, the Caribbean Student Association. So therein, you have to market yourself. You need people to come to the meetings. You need people to come to the events. So some of those skills are transferable. From a business standpoint, it was certainly in that concept development role and very much social capacity. Because as a brand, we need to grow awareness, right? When I say a patty in this room, people think burger buns, but our Jamaican style patty is a different product. So running light campaigns and getting, 120,000 followers was a big deal for us to get us in front of that space. And we kind of grew from that after.
Love it. So, Erica, I've touched a little bit on your career. Could you just tell us a little about that gap between what you mentioned then, some of the early search stuff you were doing, and the copywriting that you're still doing today, to some of the steps along the way to where you're now with one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies?
Sure. So I started as a copywriter, and I built my career really intentionally. This was 2002, and I said, I want to learn everything about digital so I could eventually run omni-channel, right? Managing all the channels, putting together cohesive plans. So I went from being a copywriter to being an ad traffic manager, expanding out to email, expanding out to display, brand side, because at first I was vendor side, right? And then from there, I went on to be a media planner. I managed co-registration, partnerships, stuff like that back in the day for travel. Then I moved back to the East Coast because I did all of that for Idea Lab companies. If anyone kind of has a memory of Idea Lab, there were companies that were built in an incubator to see if they could work in this new digital boom, right? I moved back to the East Coast, went publisher side, usatoday.com, when there were 7 employees. I was a product manager. I built my product. I designed my product. I measured my product. I sold my product.
Yep.
I wrote the copy for my product. I set the pricing floors for my product because there were 7 of us. And then we started doing SEO, and they were like, Erica knows search. I said, that's paid. They're like, no, you know search, do it. So then I did the SEO, like another channel. Then I went to Marriott corporate, and I was the e-commerce marketing manager for the global website and all of the in-language iterations. And my role there was to test new and emerging tools and technology, which led me into the career path that I have been on ever since. So that was 2008 to 2010, right? Worked in commercial real estate. So literally after Marriott hit every industry, built out their in-house practice, got them ready for an acquisition, moved to Atlanta, because I was in DC when I did all of that, moved to Atlanta, ran an SEO practice where we were actually building websites in our clients' verticals to drive lead gen that typically happened on phone. So measuring the SEO site to call, form generation, right? Building the websites, building social presences for the websites, managing the copywriting for the websites, not writing it because I had other stuff to do. Moved back up this way because also during that time in like 2005, my mom and dad were like, is this really what you want to do? I'm like, yeah, this is fun. You get to find out about people, right? Because at a PR degree, people are the center of all things. So they bought me a bunch of the contracts and stuff for a lot of the tools and technology to support my career.
Nice.
And I moved into my own consultancy, which is what brought me up here because I came up as a consultant for Verizon Wireless's digital transformation. And then you guys have hopped everywhere. It's like, how should I consolidate this? I worked at Group M. I worked at IPG. I worked at Dentsu. I worked in fashion. I used to be the account lead on Burberry. That was fun. Drugs pay more. I couldn't afford that $10,000 alligator coat then. I can now. See, they weren't giving a discount. I worked on the Dow Jones business. I worked on JM Smucker. So literally every single industry. My takeaway from all of it, I moved into programmatic in 2016. Did it at Cadreon, now Matterkind. Ran the Universal McCann pod, any business coming out of the New York office. My team was on that book of business. And then I was like, I need to bring it all together. And I flipped over to pharma, right? And my flip over to pharma was people-based too. I'm African-American, African-Americans and Hispanics, the vaccine. We just don't take pharma. Medical disparities. You need representation. Here I am.
Wow. What a great journey.
Sum it up.
Yeah, that's really great.
And I still write.
And still writing.
Ghostwriting someone's autobiography because that's my number one love, and I'm so focused on the people-based, which is what I told you. He also works in digital, but people are the key to successful digital. So we talk about data-driven, we talk about a publisher-based approach. Now I want to know the people.
100%, because what's the data about? It's about the people, it's getting to the root of that. And really interesting there. So, a lot of, I've worked agency side for a while, I've worked client side. You've also worked publisher side, so you've got like a full 360 view of what's happening with those people and how they're getting interacted with by the different providers. Stephen, I'd love for the audience here to just get an understanding of your career journey, to where you are today.
Yeah. Can we clap for Erica again, because that was quite some journey. No, very impressive, Erica. I know we spoke before, but very well done. Proud of you. We're no friends apparently. But
we are friends. See, I learned a bunch of stuff about him. I can tell you things about
funny
him.
enough, Erica's last name is my family's last name. We're not related, but Hawthorne is the family business. My uncle who started the bakery, his name was Lowell Hawthorne. 10 siblings, they all moved to United States from Jamaica, started one bakery in 1989, and it grew to the business that it is today. And I've been there for most of it. And through that time, since 2009, as a concept development consultant, we went into the needs. When you're in a family business, sometimes you have to address the needs. So it was an unusual turn for me, but we needed to expand production to meet demand. We had just picked up our first nationwide account, and we needed to push production to 2 shifts. So I was like, you know what? If that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. So I expanded manufacturing, moved the warehouse to a separate location, rebuilt a whole retail production facility to the standards that you need to produce for the very friendly USDA, who are there with you every morning at 5 a.m. before you make one product. So I've been in there from 4 a.m. and I've been in there until 2 a.m. I've opened, I've closed, I've ran manufacturing practice to expand us nationwide, and I've also done the distribution side of it to carry us there to those accounts that we've won. So from operations to logistics, but innately I've always thought in marketing, and I've always been a resource for the marketing team. So when that vacancy made itself available in 2015, I was in there. I jumped right in. It was a tough year for us. We had to give it a recall for some fine print. As I said, those guys, they don't miss. And we had to offset something. So we created the National Jamaican Patty Day, which changed the search trajectory. Before you search, you would say recall, no, you search, you see, Golden Cross celebrates their first annual National Jamaican Patty Day. This August, it's the first Saturday in August every year, will be 8 years. And since then, we've gotten very involved in the digital space, from just the general stuff on Google, but more detailed functions within that SEO. We rebuilt the website in 2018, which, as you know, is a huge lift. And we don't have a big team. It's myself, I have an ABM. So what's good about that is you absorb everything. So you do a website exercise with a good agency, you're pretty well versed now in most things that you can do on a website. We did packaging after that with another good agency, and you absorb that. So as much as it's long days and late nights, you are sharper when you're done, and I've always appreciated that about the small team aspect. So now we have several teams, because we're that small. I probably don't have a team as large as Erica's, but we trust our vendors. I always tell people we're like a Caribbean marketing octopus. So we have vendors who we trust that are the tentacles, right? We're the central brain. We have full top-down autonomy, but our vendors are like the tentacles. And what most people don't know about octopus, or octopi, dare I say, is that each tentacle has its own brain. And what we trust our vendors to do is bring their own train of thought. And that's why we're very selective about who we bring in, especially to handle our digital, where we do invest heavily. It's our heaviest channel right now. Ad buys, it's 70-30, 70 digital, 30% traditional. So we definitely trust them with all our activations across, local search, discovery, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We test some Bing. But that's definitely an area that we've grown a lot in. Has been as many areas in the last 3 to 4 years, I would say.
Yep, excellent. Yeah, give him a clap. Now, so Erica and Stephen, you've both come into your businesses, from different routes, but a big part of what you do, and I mean, your job title is literally digital transformation, around that transformation piece. Stephen, I loved in our chats leading up to today, you mentioned that, Erica was brought in to do that, but you basically hijacked your way in.
Yeah, I had to kick in the back door, do a Trojan horse kind of approach.
Yeah. So, and I reckon there's a lot of people here who can probably relate to that, in terms of your organisations. So you don't always get the budget to actually have someone come in and run that. It might be something that needs to be done a little bit stealth, through other, people working in different roles from different departments to try to push that movement through until you get the key stakeholders above. So I'd love to talk a bit about the paths you guys have taken to really get that sway in your organisations. But, while we're there, if we could talk about some of the challenges in bringing that transformation from a digital marketing perspective. Erica, what have you found? You were brought in for that, but was there a predecessor for that particular role?
No, I was the first hire.
Yep.
Because we had to let go of our agency. So how do you lead that? How do you make that happen?
Yeah.
I think of this, and I say this all the time. My mom's one of 12. My dad's one of 10. I need a piece of paper to write down all my cousins. It's 50 plus. Imagine the get-togethers. Most of them, even the women, are over 6 feet tall. you gotta have a strategy. If you want to get something done when everybody's playing, you gotta have a strategy. Because I'm clearly not close to 6 feet tall. The women are 6 feet tall. I am not even 5'1". So the talking thing,
Yep.
I nailed that at like 2. How am I going to convince these people we should play kickball instead of XYZ, right?
Yep.
So I think that I honed that. And what has worked for me, surprisingly enough, in the New York area is I'm from Virginia. And I just twang it up a little bit more, right? Because people are like, oh, she's so nice, she's accommodating. But I'm very focused. And so you just twang a little bit harder in
Yep.
tough times, and people are like, what pleasant southern manners. It works.
Yeah. Yeah.
It works. You have to know your audience. You have to adjust for your audience. You have to have a plan. Like I said all that in jest, but it's actually very true, right? There's some people where it's like, look, I just want the facts. Let me hit you with the bullets. There are some people that need to know the whole story. I have the story. I have the bullets. Which way do you need it? That's how I'm going to give it to you because we have a goal and we need to get there together. So I'm going to adjust for the way that you receive information in order to get the thing done that we need done. And I always say my approach is sort of, I'm like, it's not an aggression thing. It's more so of a, how do I approach it? People are always like, who's going to let me? And I said, you got to shift the question. Who's going to stop you? Who's going to stop you?
Yep.
Most of the time, nobody.
Yep.
People are always looking for permission. I don't need permission to do what I was brought here to do. I need to gain buy-in. I can do that. But who's going to stop you? Flip the question, it flips the results. That's always been my approach. And you see, like, I'm twanging it up, so it's not even aggressive. It's just, who's going to stop me? That works.
Yep. I'm curious to the planning process there. So, you're brought into an organisation. There's probably some really important people who would like to know what you're going to be doing in that first 90 days, 180 days. Digital transformation is not something which is done in a couple of months. So obviously there's some longer term thinking that needs to be presented there. But what did that look like early on?
3 Ps, people, process, performance, right? I didn't get my second hire until June, end of June. I started December 14th, 2020. So in the beginning, it was like, oh, I'm going to define some stuff. And when they hire some people, we'll do that.
Yeah.
But I think it was such a free-for-all right there in the beginning because it was a very new experience. One of the things that you'll hear about pharma if you ever move into that space is pharma's about 10 to 15 years behind everyone else in digital. And my talk track and my approach has always been, doesn't matter if it's pharma, what worked at Marriott will work in pharma. Digital does what digital does. Because people are people, right?
Yep.
And people are going to people the way that they people, no matter what they're doing, right? Like, so I think about stuff like that. What are the processes that I have already developed that are replicable, that people here don't have insight into? Let's build out, visualize what that looks like, what the org chart looks like. And then I do what I call taking it on a roadshow. You got to tell a bunch of people the same thing a lot of times. Let them ask some questions. So by the time I got those hires 6 months in, we had a road plan. And the other thing that made it easy is that what I've done for most of my career, I think I have 5 direct reports. 2 of them I've worked with previously. 1 of them I've taken every place that I've gone since I met her because nobody does what she does, right?
Yep.
And then I hired somebody else who I used to be their boss. Then I hired somebody else who I'm friends with somebody that they know. So I have 10 people, 5 openings, so that's 15. I don't know if my team's way bigger, but of those 10 people that I have right now, 6 of them, I'm a known entity. So how do you implement stuff? They came in, I was like, you know me, guys, rock and roll.
So you're bringing your own tribe in. They understand the shorthand already. They understand.
My octopi with those brains.
Yeah.
Like, I thought about it like this, but these are my octopi. These are the tentacles. We're connected.
Yeah, good.
And I always say my team's a vibe.
Yep.
So I bring the people that I've already known their work. I know what they can do. They know how I am and who I am. So there is none of that figuring it out stuff. And the people on my team that I didn't already know, because the hiring process took so long, right? Think about that 6 months. Talk to them every month until we were ready to hire. Hey, I had a conversation with you. I really liked you. I talked to such and such. They know you stick by.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they did.
Really interesting there,
Yeah.
bringing in your people to help bring that sort of that consensus, but obviously making just the whole transformation so much more efficient because they know how you operate.
They've done it with me
They've done it
before.
with you before.
And so if everybody else is like, oh, can we do this? I'm like, every place you've worked with me, we had to do this. Where'd the numbers go? Up.
Yeah.
Follow me. Let's go.
That's
So
great.
it's easy because we're known to each other. And I
Yeah.
know every single thing that they can do. So I had that 6 months observing in the transition. So when I hired my director of media activation, whose name is Glennis, I was like, gee, you know what you do. You know all the tech. They're messed up on the tech. Figure this out.
Yep.
We ended the year. She was the only person in the group who had an exceptional employee rating and a special bonus because I knew she could do that.
Yep.
So it takes some of the pressure off, right? It's like, I'm going to focus on this. I know you can do that. People, since it all comes back to the same thing, you got to know people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And Stephen, you're dealing with a very different situation where, trying to bring in that change. How do you go about doing that? Like, are you laying out a big plan, or are you, are we sort of taking them by surprise? Like, what's your approach?
No, you have to do everything.
Yeah.
Honestly, you have to work hard. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And you have to prove out. You have to innovate. I always tell my group that good work is insoluble, so you're better off just doing it because it's not gonna go away. It doesn't dissolve. So you're better off putting in the work now because it will pay off. So if you prove out, you get enough wins. You're bringing new initiatives that change the game, that add revenue to your bottom line. When you're bringing in extra millions, it's easier to talk to people about new ideas.
Yeah.
Because your last idea was good.
Yeah.
It's not where you're only as good as your last hit, but if you build up enough wins, then when the discussions become shorter, because the relationships improve.
What was one of the
relationships easily improve over success? Go ahead.
So I was going to say, what was one of the first wins you brought in where you went, okay, I'm going to try this. If it goes well, I think this could be really big for our business internally. And then you got that win and you were able to have more sway to push more through. What was one of those first examples?
Sway is important. But yes, it was probably delivery.
Yeah.
Third-party delivery was something that we never had going on before. Back in the day, there was only one way to get Golden Crust.
Yeah.
So you wait in a line for 15 minutes. You're literally eating away at your lunchtime in the line.
Yeah.
So just being able to become more accessible, ordering ahead, the website, the app loyalty rewards, but within the digitization of it all, it was third-party delivery. And I always tell people, we need to just increase trial. We have a great product. I don't know, by a show of hands, how many people in here have had a Jamaican-style patty? It's okay, don't be afraid to not raise your hand. I get it, not many.
Yes, me too.
She said she's having a very
a very small percentage. I was maybe 10 off a rough estimate. 10% of the people in this room have had a Jamaican style patty. So we need to get in front of more people. Delivery did that for us.
Yeah.
The people who may live on Flatbush in the nicer part may not walk down to 21 Flatbush where the Golden Crust is, but they'll get it delivered. And that worked for us in Florida. That worked for us in Atlanta. Getting trial and increasing trial. And not everybody at first like, oh, it's a pandemic year because of COVID shutdowns. We lapped by 47% the following year. And we're like, oh, okay, this guy might know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So those things really helped. And even when you rebrand something, when people say that you know your vision for the brand, you're able to execute it, measure the results, and then you're right, you do have to take it on tour. You do have to go to Florida and meet with all your franchisees and present for all day, and then take that same thing to North Florida for their deck, specific to their results, to their region, because we're very specific how we fund by DMA, sometimes sub-DMA, because the messaging should be different. My customer in Atlanta, in Douglasville, is not the same person in Marietta, and it's the same state. So you have to become very immersed in everything. You almost have to be crazy about it. But once you be able to present to these people and come back the next year and show improvements on what you said you were going to do, and you do that every year, then why don't me, as you were kind of saying?
Yeah.
You know?
And he's people-based. Look, he's
That's right.
recognizing Douglasville, Marietta, not the same. It always works.
Yeah.
I'm into it. This is good.
Thank you.
Erica, can you maybe expand a bit on that? We talked a bit about, people-focused marketing. Everyone talks about personalization. Where are they? Where is the person in their journey? But that term people-focused marketing, what does that mean to you, Erica?
It means that we build these personas. Like everyone knows that. I totally forgot this. I teach digital and brand marketing at NJIT. So we teach people how to build the personas and stuff, right? And the personas are representative of a segment. Like this is, I think, and my example is pharma. People are like, oh, that's a prostate cancer patient. Is he 50? Is he 70? Is he white? Is he Hispanic? African American? You're 70% more likely to have prostate cancer. You should start your screenings earlier. The advancement of the disease are different. Your access is different. I need to know these things because if you just, I like the song, girl. It's fine. I like the song. I was going to give a shimmy, but it turned off too fast. So I think one of the things is that I understand that. And I think understanding that people are on a journey. I moved to pharma specifically for African American and Hispanic and those medical disparities because I've seen it happen in my own family where it's not even financially based, right? My family does well, but they still have deep concerns in this area. And then also I have a degenerative digestive disorder, so I am a patient. And I see the marketing, they're like, this person's a patient. They're going to go to Healthline. It's not. I am me. And I have a condition and I'm going to live my life and I'm going to show up all these places and do all the things that I do while I have this illness. And so you need to know that about people because I'm not thinking every day, I have Crohn's disease. Let me go to Healthline. Let me go to WebMD. I am thinking, I am Erica. I'm in charge of digital strategy at my job and I have to do X, Y, and Z. And I got this thing. So you got to know me still because if you talk to me, or you try and communicate with me just because I have Crohn's, of all the things that I am, that is a small thing. You would only know that if I told you. So communicate with me based on who I am as a person versus a condition, because most people are never their circumstance, right? And so it's important to understand who people are. Like I watched your LinkedIn coming up and I was like, oh, look at Russ's kid. He's excited. He's coming from Austin to New York. And I could hear from your voice. I'm like, Russ is really engaged with his kids. If I'm going to talk to Russ about a treatment and how it extends life or, hey, focus on this, do it for your children because that's what really Russ is going to respond to. But the other person that was flying up for the conference that maybe is talking about, I got to get out there. I got to make sure I'm still hiking. Maybe I'm talking to him about the activities. You have to segment. It's why I'm people-based. It's why I focus on biddable media because you're buying on a per impression or a per click basis so I can make the journey that you're on the journey that you're on. But if I don't focus on the biddable media and I focus on direct buys and stuff, I have to focus on every now and then they're going to show up here. Listen, I love Golden Crust. If people are like, hey, message to her when she's in a Golden Crust, you're going to miss so much of me. Message me while I'm sitting here waiting for this lift, hungry, and let me add a stop. Stop by this Golden Crust, right? So you have to think very intentionally because people are intentional about their lives. Why wouldn't they be intentional about what they purchase? And that's what I'm trying to bring to pharma. I knew so much stuff when I worked on Hershey's about what makes a college student buy candy. I don't know why during exam time, they ate a lot of Jolly Ranchers. We knew that, right? Who knows? Probably because it's like, oh, this is intense, frustration. Got this candy. Eventually I can crunch it. I don't know. It works. I knew so much about them, and I don't know much about these patients. And I always say in the narrative that I'm on in pharma, when I say you got to convince people, I'm like, I knew so much stuff about who people were that bought Hershey's Kisses, that bought Jolly Ranchers. We don't know very much about these patients, and that's why we have all these patients, because we figure it out for the candy, but not for the health, right? And some of it's not rocket science.
Yep.
People are who they are. And I always say that on every panel, people are going to people. Whatever you do in your life, you're going to do that regardless of advertising. So it's more important for me to understand you and map into your life than vice versa, because you don't care about my brand. You care about the value that I provide to your life. And so that's where I need to focus.
Love it. Love it. Stephen, let's talk about people-focused marketing from your perspective and, who your customers are. And is, you mentioned that, if they're in Atlanta or the tri-state area where they are, you need to speak to them differently. So how does this relate to Golden Crust?
Well, yeah, we're growing and we're liking the footprint and the trajectory. I think the best example I could pull for is when we did our partnership with Beyond Meat in 2019. It was the first ever Jamaican-style plant-based patty. And we got a feature from Lizzo, actually, which was very novel. I think everybody may or may not know Lizzo. But Lizzo was making, a few months before we launched it, a plant-based patty on her TikTok account. And I said, all right, we're cooking this up, literally and figuratively at this point. I was like, we have to reach back out to Lizzo when this thing is ready. I knew that Lizzo wasn't going to respond to me from the Golden Crust account. So I tapped the Beyond Meat team on the knee. I was like, guys, can you shoot her a note to see if she'd be interested in featuring this product on her stories at least? They're like, all right, cool. So they sent the notes. She didn't respond. She didn't respond. And like, we were going to launch, and the night, like a couple of days before, she wrote back like, oh my God, this is the best day of my life. And I was very prideful that day because she could have asked for anything from Beyond Meat at that time, but she was asking for more of our stuff. Like she wanted cocoa bread. She wanted like some of the other patties that we sell. Like she wanted Golden Crust products. And for a little restaurant that started in the Bronx as a family business, for her to swing our way, I was very humbled by that. So that was an opportunity for us with Beyond Meat especially to speak to a larger audience. And that activation was still probably the most tumultuous time in my career because the difference in messaging and the opportunities in which we had to create different content, and content is king at this point, right?
Yeah.
But the audience segmentation, when you layer that over the different content needs, it became a nightmare. There were like 300 different assets in play, depending on not just Google at this point, because now we're activating on the third-party deliveries as well. So the other channels that we mentioned, the ad assets, the scripts, because it's different copy for different regions. You have to have a different copy that speaks to the Jamaican person, because if they see it in their natural language, then of course it's easier to digest. I didn't mean that one either. But it's easier to digest the message when it's in your native tongue, right? Like if you're a Spanish-speaking person and you see something in Spanish, you're like, oh, I get that. It's easier to understand and more relatable, more personalized. So we became very personalized by audience. So we have the National Tree of Jamaica is a lignum vitae, right? And internally, as a psychopath that they think I am, I call it the lignum vitae methodology. We know what keeps a tree alive. It's the root. Our root is the core customer. The core customer is the Jamaican person born in the Caribbean. They're coming in 2 to 3 times a week. They have their favorite menu items. They keep the staff paid. They keep the lights on. Mm-hmm. They're not necessarily what's going to grow us to the next level, though, right? And I am ambitious. So we have now, of course, from the root comes the branches. So they're connected to the core culture. They're probably kids of us, like my kid, Noah. He's that. He grew up in the culture. He knows what oxtail is. I don't have to educate him on curry goat or what a patty is. He knows it. He might not know how to cook it yet. Loves to cook, though. Loves to cook. But it's easier for him to understand the messaging. And then there's the leaves. They're all the way over here, but they're still a part of it. And I feel like they're still connected to the root.
Yep.
So how do we get them in? So it was different messaging, different content, different assets for each of those by region. And trust me, I mean, that was a learning experience for me. And that's definitely how we have been approaching it since then.
Very cool. Very cool. Just got a few more questions I want to get through, and I'm conscious of time because I'm sure everyone in the audience, there's probably a few questions, we're getting a few nods. Okay, we'll get through these quick so we can throw some questions into the audience as well. Just quickly, if we could touch on some digital channels and tactics that you guys are seeing, do you think are going to have, a big impact on your business over the next couple of years? I know with our clients, we're doing lots of really cool stuff with CTV and geofencing around certain areas for physical location type businesses. But what are you guys seeing? Content creators as well in the e-commerce space is becoming a really big thing, especially as a lot of those platforms are letting you shop straight out of the app. So some big stuff there, but what are you guys seeing? Stephen, do you want to kick off?
Sure. For us, it's still that trust factor that we're trying to develop and raise awareness. So the content piece is in full swing. We're actually just got a new vendor in South Florida and they're working right now. So using our natural platforms to raise awareness.
Yep.
And we'll do that with how-tos. Our YouTube channel has been performing very well lately, getting more double the click-through rates of the average ad. So we're very happy with the work we're getting there. But the influencer piece is going to be big for us. Like there's no way around it as a brand that's from Jamaica. And we've done it before. The Lizzo piece worked. We've worked with Caribbean artists before. We've had DJ Khaled in some of our restaurants in Brooklyn. Like it's the go-to staple piece for Caribbean food. So if we continue to lean into that authenticity with influencers that make sense, right? It has to be believable. You can't just get Chris Rock out here saying, big up Golden Crust. It doesn't work that way. You need some people who have some relevancy to the culture and the brand.
Yeah.
So more of those you'll see as we launch new products this year. We have a full calendar with new products and limited time offers that I'm very excited about. But between that, the social side of it, we definitely are trying to look into some OTT and CTV where we can. We don't have the buyer budget, but we're working on it.
Yeah.
But we definitely do like what we've seen. And I mean, I think we're up 28% year over year in same store sales right now with what we're currently doing. So that would probably be it. And of course, some of the delivery stuff. We have a very exciting spot coming up to promote delivery in a very Jamaican way.
Yeah.
So we just got the final version of that. And most people would see it on like a scooter or like a taxi, but we're Jamaican food. So we're going to send it to you on a jet ski. So we're actually rented drones and we shot overhead footage in Kingston, Jamaica, and in Pembroke Pines. And we've actually put the jet ski on the streets of Florida carrying Golden Cross food. So hopefully you will see that on your timeline soon. Naturally, cool. It's absurd. You're not really going to get it on a jet ski, everybody. But my hope is that it will stop you from scrolling, because I think, what the hell did I just see? A jet ski hooking a Yui in Pembroke. So just as a same thing, content, convenience, that's certainly our biggest play right now.
Yep.
And the innovations in the new products.
Just quickly on that around authentic partnerships and the importance of that. Masters of Scale podcast, if anyone listens to that, there's an episode with Damon John, and he talks about authentic partnerships and the importance of just aligning with people who really align with your values first. Figure out how you can make it work exactly afterwards. Because if you spend that time together, like, just asking these conversations, all of a sudden you'll find stuff you've got in common, and it can take your business in directions that you might not consciously have got to if you didn't have that authentic conversation with someone who just really aligns on what you do. So that's just wanted to touch on that. Erica, quickly on channels, tactics that you're thinking are going to move the needle for you guys.
So I think also influencers for us, right? Because if you think about some of those areas, medical disparities, you need the representation. I also think for social media and influencers, the most engaged audiences there are African American, then Hispanic, then Asian, because the first social media, mi gente, click to Asia, Black Planet. So being very intentional in those areas and focusing also, I mentioned that, on the creative. If this is your most engaged audience, this is a normal community-based practice for these audiences. Why does everyone lead with white creative? It's because people see themselves in stuff. So think about the creative. Media is 50% of the equation. Creative's the other 50%. Audio, which has a greater reach than television because of the fragmentation, messages that are heard are way more likely to be received, and it's way cheaper than television. So you can kind of get up in there, have an audio message. Biggest audiences there, African American, Hispanic, those disparities, right? So I'm mapping it back to what I'm trying to do. Also, very big for us too, CTV. So you don't have to have the bare money if you do it programmatically, and I still kept my consultancy, so let's talk. But those are the big areas, right? But more importantly, because pharma's 10 to 15 years behind, I care about that funnel. What creative maps to what location in the funnel? What am I trying to do there? What's the message? How can I sequence them? So I'd like to get to that for the connected journey, but those are my big ones.
Love it. Thank you, Erica. Okay, now I know we've got some people very keen to ask some questions. So where are our orange shirts with the mics? The orange shirts are gone, but the mics are there. So thank you. If you could raise your hand if you've got a question. Got a gentleman up the back there, and we're going to throw one of those mics at you.
And while he's asking his question, can I just say, I keep looking at you smiling because the glasses and the lip, I'm so into it. It's so good.
With that mic, can you just hold it? Yeah, hold it right up to your mouth.
Good.
Perfect.
Hi, I'm Bruce with Bridge. Erica, my question's for you. You talked about personalization in the creative. With healthcare, that must be a challenge because of the privacy laws, HIPAA compliance. Mm-hmm. So how do you use personalization in your messaging at scale? You talked about, you need to know the patient instead of consumer, customer, in your case, the patient, sorry for the feedback. Yep. So how do you manage that? How do you get scale and use personalization?
Yep, I think that's a fair question. So if you think about some of the challenges in healthcare and in pharma, there's PHI, personal health information, and you cannot target a patient one-to-one. But on the HCP side, which is the healthcare practitioner, everyone has an NPI, a National Provider Identifier. It's an open public database, no privacy issue. So I actually, like for a condition, if you think about prostate cancer, on the patient, on the doctor side, primary care physicians, PCPs, urologists, oncologists treat them. They have different behaviors. They do different things. You know what I look at and you know what I see? All of them play a lot of video games. So remember what I said, you don't have to go to the WebMD, you don't have to go to the Medscape. They're on their phone playing a video game. How can I make a gaming ad to engage this person because that's their number one activity? They also spend a lot of time on allrecipes.com. How can I come into that space? That's more awareness. They're in here for a recipe. It's personalized because I understand what they do. So even if you take the personal healthcare information on the DTC side, African Americans do one thing. West Indians do another thing. Some things we do together. Because he was sitting here talking, and I'm like, there we go. Like, if we're talking about, which West Indians always say, there we go, let's go. But it's there we go, right? I know this because I work remote. So every 6 to 8 weeks before this pandemic, I spent in the Caribbean. Had a West Indian boyfriend. Ate a lot of patties. He wasn't Jamaican, but they were Jamaican patties because that's y'all, right? But I say this to say, I know the nuance of people, and you find the commonalities so that it feels personalized, right? You don't know that my favorite color is purple. You wouldn't know that from anything, but you do know that I'm a 5 foot tall African-American woman who works in digital media. Who else is like that? Because I can respond to those things, because for most people, they don't want the level of personalization where you know that my favorite color is purple, because then it's like, you don't really know me and you're trying too hard, right? That's awkward in real life. That's awkward in advertising. But it's no secret. I'm at a conference for digital. I'm a short Black woman. I can rock with that. There's a lot that can happen there, right?
Cool. Thank you. Any other questions? Yep, we've got one just up in front here. Yes, please, hold on. Wait for the mic. That's okay. Can we just wait for the mic so that people who are watching online can hear you?
Hi.
Can you pass it? You can throw it over.
Oh,
There you are.
Oh, that was
Okay.
scary to me.
Excellent.
Oh, so
I don't
good.
remember catching anything, but okay. So first of all, thank you for this excellent panel. It was so lovely. I do have a question for Steven. You mentioned that you reached out to Lizzo.
Yes.
And the question is, sometimes when campaigns go viral, you have to meet the customer experience through the demand.
Correct.
And the question is, did you prepare for that? Because things move so fast when they become viral on social media. Were you prepared for this event that Lizzo will recommend and everyone will come, running to your stores, and all of a sudden you'll have to meet a way bigger demand?
Great question, and half, I would say, is my response. We were prepared to the extent that we could be. And I guess my apologies, I didn't tell you guys how that ended, right? Lizzo ended up actually accepting the patties, and she went on Instagram Live for like 15 minutes, devouring them, cursing in Jamaican, like the spirit of the Holy Ghost of Jamaican patties took her over. And for the next 6 to 8 weeks, our social was on fire, and we couldn't respond to everything. Everybody, of course, wants us now to come West Coast with this Beyond Meat product because, they're in El Segundo. So, no, we weren't ready for that side of it, but it did give us an opportunity to plan. So now that's a part of the roadmap. But, without that, we wouldn't have known that there was an option to carve into the mountains of California. But no, possibly we'll look into that. But we were ready with the product. We had a nice handwritten note, which she appreciated, I'm assuming. A very good kit, because naturally you don't do influencer marketing in just a plain brown box. So she liked what she got, which we put a bunch of time in. So we were ready from that aspect. The response, we responded to it, but no, we have our work cut out for us, and we're actually looking forward to that. Thank you for the question.
Great question. Thank you. We've got one more question up the back here. Is there any others? We might fit 2 more in. We're a little bit over, but we're having some fun. Yes, go for it.
This is for Erica. I love that you are convincing Russ to go after programmatic to help with, budgets. And I work at an in-game advertising company called Anzu. Curious to know, how is Bayer or other pharmaceutical companies looking at in-game with restrictions with like IAB? How do you end up putting all the disclaimers? Like, what is that process like for you?
Sure. So I think that it's a couple of things, right? So most people are mobile first, which I think, we're all there. Sometimes our traffic is like 80% mobile for an individual treatment area, and they're going to play the games. How do we focus on the privacy? Same way, like if you think about the games, they're a takeover. The biggest inventory spot that we run in for mobile is a 300 by 250, so you can get that ISI in there really easily, and it's a scroll and ISI at the bottom, so the rest of it can happen. But the thing that I am big on is unbranded vanity URL, no ISI. You only have to say the ISI, which is the important safety information. Everyone, it's all the stuff. This drug is going to help you, but also you may vomit all day. No, or whatever the thing is, right? That's the ISI. It's like, what are the adverse things that could happen? But if you run unbranded, because remember what I said before, patients respond better to unbranded. Doctors respond better to branded. If I have cancer, do you think I care that this is Bayer? Do you think I care that Bayer's prostate cancer treatment is Nubeca? It's a game. People engage in the game. It helps you figure out things about you and your health. People's concern is themselves. So it comes back to the personalization again. I'm going to make a game that helps address a condition that you have. My brand doesn't matter, but I'm going to give you a vanity URL that you can remember. And I've already messaged you with this. So when I have my ad server, my programmatic, and my connected journey, I know you saw it. I tag it by the quartile if it's a video. I know if you went 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%. I know where you stopped. Next message, you might be on your desktop and you get it branded and you're going to remember it because it's the same colors and everything. Yep.
Great. Okay, there's one last question over here on the left. Go for it. Yes, just speak right into the box.
Thank you. So mine's sort of a little controversial. It's about one of the biggest trends in digital marketing is that misinformation campaigns are truly successful. We've seen this with the COVID-19 epidemic and a bunch of vaccine hesitancy and some crazy, some wide ranges of information out there. How do we address it? And how can we actually leverage the power of misinformation campaigns? And I mean, there's certainly knowledge in how people consume information and how it actually changes behaviors.
That's a big question. Who wants to take
I know,
that?
and I'm like, look, I'm sitting here like, say Steven.
Yeah, Stephen.
How do you address
That's a really good
misinformation
question.
about it? Is a really good question.
We're looking at you.
You're looking at me, and I'm trying not to look at you because I'm thinking about it. So I think while Steven's thinking about this, one of the things that I think, right, is that this is like online reputation management. If you think about it, when I worked in SEO, there's all this untrue stuff or maybe something that is out of context that people are going to see in the SERPs. So it's like, how do you push the information down? How do you counterbalance the information? Sometimes it doesn't have to be direct. If people say the sky is blue, then you have videos with the purple sky. It's like, is the sky blue? Sometimes you just put the right information in market because it's going to happen a couple of ways, right? People that are actually looking for the correct thing will search all the information. The way that most people function is that they're searching for confirmation bias,
Yep.
right? I believe this, I'm going to find that stuff, which is how so much of the misinformation gets effective. If you click something, this is such a funny story. I'm going to try and say it really shortly. And I told my boyfriend this, and I'm like, sir, this is my job. He's like, I don't know why they keep showing me this lady in a bathing suit on YouTube in my results. I said, well, you were looking for videos about your spirituality, so I'm wondering. And I said, did you click it? You clicked it. That's why you got it. I was like, I don't really care that you clicked it. That's kind of a natural thing. Don't call me offended. You got it because you clicked it, which is how the algorithm works, right? And he's like, it has 1 million views. Why did they think I want? Because you're one of the million, darling. And it's my job, and I told you this. He's like, oh, yeah, it's going to happen. Because people are going to click the things that resonate with them, and then it dissipates the rest of it. So if you're going to solve for misinformation, you can't do it in an algorithm-based location, right? You have to do it like from an email communication, or because you're following the journey and you show up places where you maybe know those people who follow a lot of misinformation are. And it's a long process because you're showing things for awareness and planting another thought, but people have to move off of a bias before you get there. So I would manage it outside of channels like YouTube or Facebook or Twitter because you're going to get what you click. My trends are different than my brother's, and I'm like, yeah, because I'm watching Real Housewives. I didn't see the thing about Kyrie Irving because I don't really care, right? It's like that.
Yep. Stephen, did you want to weigh in on this?
Sure, why not? I think I can only control our industry or what we do. I think the broader scale issues that we've seen utilized with are up to the bodies who put that information or serve it or choose to allow people to receive it, rather. But for us, we get a bunch of stuff that's misinformation and it gets a lot of reach on like blogs and stuff like that. but we just have to choose education. So everybody knows that when this pandemic hit, the world went upside down for many reasons. But from our business specifically, we don't serve burgers and French fries. So if chicken is hard to find or chicken prices has doubled, imagine what happens to oxtail. You know what I mean? There are only so many tails on an ox. So inherently, things change. And not only is there a shortage there, but shortage in the laborers to farm them as well. So when those supply chain, is that the first time we said that today?
Supply
That's crazy.
chain.
It is.
I've said supply chain. In my business, we say supply chain every day. So the fact that it took this long, I would have lost this bet. But the supply chain challenges that we have inherited are hard for our consumers to understand because they don't necessarily shop for oxtail when they go to the grocery market every week. So they haven't seen the inflation. So there was an instance where our oxtail price went from like $80 to like $28. And somebody posted it and was like, Golden Crust is crazy. How can they be doing this? And we had to just offset it with compassion innately. Like, we don't want oxtail to be that high either. And then we made like a make oxtail cheap again sign. And we had put that in the thread and we had a whole Twitter thread about it. And people understood once you educated them. Naturally, you're not going to tell them about some of these specificities that we have the luxury of reasoning about now. But people just need to know, especially even the content. Like, people don't know how hard it is to get a Caribbean steam table full in the mornings. So they come in at like 6 and they may want oxtail. It's done. I'm not going to lie to you. It's finished. Because it takes 4 hours to make and you can't really just put on a quick pot of oxtail. It doesn't work that way. So literally our product is cooked from scratch, made fresh daily, first come, first serve. Every day is an LTO, realistically. So we have to showcase to the customers, the chef is up at 4 in the kitchen, the ingredients, the seasonings, the cook times, time lapses to show how arduous it is to put together this menu by day part, because we do breakfast and we have a lunch dinner segment. And just show them how much work goes into it. So when it's done, they have an appreciation for it before it's done, and they get to it before it runs out. So that's actually what's up next for us. It's a bit more storytelling.
Storytelling.
I love that.
Great.
That's so good.
Guys, let's get a big round of applause for Stephen Clark and Erica Hawthorne.
Oh, so good. Yeah, so good. Pleasure to meet you.
Great conversation. Thank you so much for your time. We went a little bit over, but I think everyone enjoyed it. The next one is Randy Race. He's been waiting very patiently, but we can push that into a little bit of the refreshments time, so that's no worries. Thanks again, Stephen and Erica. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.